Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're making espresso mocha cupcakes. My dad actually gave me the idea to bake these, and when I looked online they luckily weren't too hard to find. I'll be listing the recipe I use here in the video description. We'll start off our recipe with the batter. Over a double broiler, which is just a heat-proof bowl over a pot of hot water, or in the microwave, combine 3/4 of a cup of milk, 1/3 of a cup of chocolate chips, and 1 tablespoon of instant espresso or espresso powder. I personally use espresso powder, but they're pretty much the same thing. Mix them around a bit and make sure your setup is on and heating. As the ingredients heat up, they will melt together and become a nice and light coffee brown liquid. Next, the dry ingredients. Sift together 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, 1/3 of a cup of cocoa powder, a half teaspoon of baking soda, and a half teaspoon of salt. The mixture should look powdery and dark brown, roughly the color of the cocoa powder. It's really important for these to be mixed well now, as it gets harder and harder to mix things well as the batter progresses and thickens. Okay, we're closing in on the end of the batter. Gradually add the dry cocoa mixture to the espresso milk liquid, about 1 or 2 cups at a time. You have to do it gradually in order to end up with a consistent result. The new combination will be fairly thick, but not to worry, we'll be thinning it soon. Time for the very last ingredients of our batter. Crack in 2 eggs, 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, a teaspoon of white vinegar, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. You may be asking, why vinegar? Well, the vinegar is added to activate the baking soda later on. I promise it doesn't hurt the taste. Make sure to mix thoroughly, and this is your final batter. Moving on, get your standard cupcake pan and put in your liners. You don't really need to grease the pan for cupcakes in general. So there's lots of ways to pour your cupcake batter, but I personally like to use a ladle. I know it seems kind of outlandish, but trust me, it works. Though I didn't say it wasn't messy. And voila, as if I was a good baker. As you may have inferred, we will now put our cupcakes into the oven for 18 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a toothpick, cake tester, or a similar long pointy object to test if things are cooked. They should come out nice and clean with no batter on them, and the tops of the cupcake should spring back when lightly touched. While those are cooling, let's start our espresso buttercream. First, take a stick or half cup of room temperature butter and beat it for a couple minutes until it has softened somewhat. Next, take a small container, like a shot glass, or in my case a little beaker I had lying around, and mix the teaspoon of vanilla and 2 teaspoons of espresso together to make a dark, flavorful liquid. When mixed well, add them to the butter along with a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. After that, mix in 1½ cups of powdered sugar, but be careful, add it gradually half a cup at a time to avoid inconsistent and powdery frosting. You should end up with a thick yellowy frosting. Last step, add a tablespoon of heavy cream to thin it a bit. All I had was half and half, so to get the consistency I achieved, you may need a bit more than I did. The frosting should be thin enough to pipe, but not too thin, like icing. And our final secret sauce. Chocolate ganache. In a small pan on the stove over medium heat, we're going to make something very similar to the base of the cupcakes from earlier. Pour in 1/3 of a cup of heavy cream and 2 teaspoons of our good friend the espresso. Again, I only had half and half, so I improvised a bit and added a sliver of cream cheese, but I highly recommend you follow the recipe. It worked out fine for me though. Make sure the stuff is extra hot, only take it from the stove when it's simmering and bubbling. It isn't about cooking it, but rather being hot enough to melt. Over to the side of your pan, you should place a half cup of chocolate chips, or what I did, just cut up a half cup of normal dark chocolate from a bar into a medium heat-proof bowl. The nicer the chocolate, the better. Pour your hot cream mixture over the chocolate and let it sit for about 10 minutes to let the chocolate melt. This is very delicate, but if the chocolate hasn't softened in 10 minutes, you can rig up your double broiler again and slowly give the ganache the extra kick to get everything melted. Let it cool for about 15 minutes in the fridge to thicken and become scoopable. It should be ready around the time we need it later. Your cupcakes should be done by now, but if you're as slow as me, they're probably already ice cold. Jiggle them out of the pan and onto a clean working surface. Take a butter knife. We're going to make some holes in the cupcakes for filling. They should be round, about an inch across and also an inch deep. Take out your ganache and a suitable spoon. It's going to be our surprise filling. I was a bit short on ganache, so I recommend filling to just under the lip of your filling holes. Now we finally get to frosting. The recipe says to use a large French piping tip, but I'm not that accomplished at frosting cupcakes, so I used a simpler method. You should use a tip about a centimeter across. If you use a tip much bigger, you'll run out of frosting prematurely. But the style's up to you. They are your cupcakes after all. All that's left are the finishing touches, some good old chocolate shavings, and either chocolate covered or non-chocolate covered espresso/coffee beans, topping each finished cupcake. And ta-da! Those look good. Alright, time for the taste test. If you made these yourself, maybe try them yourself first, and then see if you agree with me. The cupcake is nice and soft, and the ganache in the center is a good, solid inside, nice and chocolatey. All the parts go together well, but I think that maybe because of their shared ingredient of espresso. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, show me by hitting the like button, and drop a comment if you have ideas for future videos. Bye!